Hi, my name is Jasminder, Sekhon, and I'm the Human Trafficking Prevention Facilitator at Victim Services of Durham Region. In today's video, a panel of experts is going to be responding to your questions about domestic sex trafficking. Today, I'm joined by Carly Church, who's the Human Trafficking Crisis Intervention Counselor and Team Lead at Victim Services of Durham Region, Detective Dave Davies, as well as his partner Jay Price of Durham Regional Police's Human Trafficking Unit, Jocelyn Siciliano, Supervisor at the Regional Municipality of Durham and Anti-Trafficking Advocate, as well as myself. Please note that this is a heavy topic, so do whatever you need to do in order to check in with yourself and take care of yourself, and please ensure you reach out for supports accordingly. Is it mainly females being sex trafficked? People of any genders can be trafficked, and people of any gender can be traffickers. Yes, the majority of domestic sex trafficking victims tend to be female. However, we also know that there could potentially be skewed results in terms of police reporting. We know that young boys and men, they are less likely to come forward and report when there's been an incident of sexual assault or exploitation. And so we know that there may be an underrepresentation when it comes to the statistics on young boys and men. We also know that youth belonging to the LGBTQ+ community, they are also at higher risk for trafficking as well. And so the long and short answer is that anybody of any gender can be trafficked.
Do a lot of trafficking survivors have substance use concerns? I would say that when somebody is struggling with addiction, it does often cause somebody to be more susceptible to being trafficked. A trafficker will use that to their advantage. If somebody already has substance use concerns or substance use issues, a trafficker could use that as a way to control and manipulate somebody into a trafficking situation. And if somebody does have addiction concerns, they're going to use this to their advantage. So they're going to use this as a means of control. They're either going to give or take away that substance in order to get an individual to do what they want them to do. We often, though, see a lot of young people who do not struggle with addiction, and a trafficker is in fact preying on other vulnerabilities.
Has human trafficking changed much since the start of the pandemic? To answer that question, the changes that we've seen is, first of all, it has not decreased. We've actually seen a 14% increase since last year here in Durham Region alone. So the pandemic hasn't halted human trafficking whatsoever. Trends that we've seen in the past year, we've seen, unfortunately, due to the shutdown of other establishments within the adult entertainment industry, we've seen girls that traditionally haven't been involved in human trafficking resulting to becoming involved in that kind of work. Another scary trend that we've seen is we've also seen girls, let alone fluctuating their prices, we've also seen them reducing their prices to become involved in what would be considered more risky sexual acts. One other trend we've witnessed since the pandemic's begun is obviously everyone's been a lot more isolated. So we've witnessed more luring occurring online, utilizing non-traditional means and websites versus the common trends that everyone has recognized, like Leo List, where human trafficking is prevalent.
What's the number one thing I can do to keep my kids safe? Love your children unconditionally. Make sure they know there is nothing they can do that would be bad enough for you to stop loving them or stop caring about their well-being. Make them feel welcome at home. Have open dialogue about consent, what exploitation can look like, and how someone can be lured into the sex trade. It might be uncomfortable to talk about, but if we give them the tools and the signs to watch for, we're helping them make safe decisions when they're out on their own. Knowledge is power. Even young children can learn about consent and boundaries. Everyone has the right to say what they're comfortable with and what they're not when it comes to their own bodies. Teach children who the safe adults are in their life, so if they are ever in trouble, they know who to go to. And teach them to trust their gut. If something makes them feel uncomfortable or scared, they need to listen to that. The teen years are tough years, and it's so common for them to push boundaries, make new friends, and try new things. They often feel awkward and want to fit in and gain the approval of peers. All of these things make them more vulnerable.
Will I get in trouble if this is happening to me? Within the criminal code, there is a immunity section that we follow that allows girls to post and collect their own money while working in the sex trade. We speak to sex trade workers all the time. This also includes girls that are being trafficked by traffickers. They will not get in trouble. We focus our efforts on the victim and victim-centered approaches for sex trade workers. We also take care of them. We incorporate victim services to assist us so we can safely have them exit out of the sex trade. Other than the criminal code part, which is very complicated and it's legal, I want to make sure everybody understands what the basics of what human trafficking is to us.
Do people who are trafficked experience a lot of physical violence? So this is a really good question. It's also a misconception. It's not a misconception where I'm going to tell you that physical violence does not exist when it comes to a trafficking situation, but it is a lot less than what's portrayed in movies and media. When there is physical violence in a trafficking situation, it usually begins at the beginning, and it usually is used to instill fear. So the threat alone is enough to keep you there after. Traffickers will often use psychological manipulation to keep you in a trafficking situation rather than physical force or physical violence. I don't like to give traffickers a lot of credit, but they are savvy business people, and they are not going to damage the product that they're selling. So they're going to find alternative ways to keep you there, and it's usually through psychological manipulation.
Is all sex work human trafficking? No, it's not. Sex trade is also includes girls that work in adult entertainment, girls that work in massage parlors. They can also work in hotels. They can post their own services online. As long as they're collecting their own money, they're not being exploited, they're not being forced or coerced to do things. As long as they're collecting everything themselves, moving around freely by themselves, they are allowed to do this.
What prevents youth from coming forward? Fear they won't be believed or that they will be judged. Confusion and doubt as to what really happened. They may have had unspeakable things done to them or asked of them, and the trauma of these events makes it very difficult to talk about. The fear of those who coerced or forced them into the game is very real. There may be threats of violence or threats of exposure. It is common for a trafficker to tell their victim that they will post pictures or videos of them on social media or send them to family members or friends in a way of keeping them in check. And lastly, victims are often confused about what took place. The trauma can make them have doubts about how things even happened, and they often blame themselves, thinking that they gave consent.
Are a lot of people who are trafficked kidnapped? So really good question. This is actually a really big misconception. A lot of people believe that individuals are kidnapped or forcibly removed from a location in order to be trafficked. But what we actually most commonly see is that an individual actually somehow knows their trafficker. They're not usually a complete stranger. It's usually somebody you have some kind of connection with, some kind of connector link. Maybe you went to the same high school, maybe you grew up in the same neighborhood, maybe it's your cousin's friend's friend or somebody who's liked a lot of your Instagram pictures. So because of that aspect that it's not a stranger, you're really not likely to be kidnapped. You usually go with that individual because they have taken the time out of their life to get to know you. They've really stopped and noticed you and asked you about your life. And they start to really assess those vulnerabilities that you have and those basic needs that maybe are not being met by your caregivers. And they begin to meet those needs. 85% of the young people that I work with actually, in fact, identify their trafficker to be their boyfriend, or the other 15% often identify their trafficker to be a friend or a companion or, in fact, a family member that's doing it to them. So you often go with that individual because you believe that you love them or that they love you. Or you go with that person because you believe they're meeting every single one of your basic needs. That's why you go. You are not kidnapped. You are not taken against your will. You're not picked up off the street. You are most likely going with that person because they have made false promises. They have begun to treat you better than anybody has ever treated you before. And you truly believe that if you go with them, they are going to take the best possible care of you.
Is there a need to be teaching risk factors for younger children, 15 and under? Yes, there definitely is a need to be teaching young children about consent and about human trafficking. There's different techniques that you can use for children starting from 2 years old and up on consent. And here at Victim Services, we actually offer educational sessions for young people starting from grade 7 and up to ensure that they are empowered and educated with the knowledge that they need in order to keep themselves safe.
What do you need in order to talk about something embarrassing or uncomfortable? I know I need someone I feel I can trust. who will listen to me and believe me without judgment. We owe it to our kids to be that person.
Victim Services of Durham Region offers many presentations and education sessions on how to keep young people safe. We also provide support to anyone who's been victimized. If you require support, please call Victim Services of Durham Region.